It's the, I've heard this for a bunch of meetings, but I'm not saying that what we get that day is what's going to be built. But you cannot continue to, I cannot continue to go forward if I don't know exactly what we're going to build based on, and I'm 100%, I don't know if you were trying to say anything with that comments, but the ocean intakes, the well intakes are, yeah, you're not going to get an ocean intake. So the well intakes, like I said, whether we need 1, 3, or 4, whether they're 20 feet deep or 80 feet deep, I mean, that'll all come out of the study. The process will be what it needs to be. But right now, the best information available, which you've hung your hat on, or we have, the board has, the community has, is what's in the master plan. So a technology that can be costed, but there are and if all of those numbers are put together, and there's still discussions on whether it's 602 or 405, as far as I'm concerned, so that we don't overbuild. The other item is that we throw in $3 million for solar as if it's, you know, chump change, and when you know, that's a lot of money. That's like $300,000 a year in new rates that we'd have to raise to put the solar on. You're not saving $300,000 worth of electric costs. So, and if people want to do it, I think my point is I want to show the people of the community that we're going to pay this kind of money. We can amortize it against our cost per kilowatt hour, and if you're willing to pay twice as much per kilowatt hour as you are now, that's fine. Somebody has to decide that. And a 218 process, by the way, in the future will be the vote on whether it goes ahead or not. But the issue of the plant size, the timing, and then knowing what we're, at least at this point, we have to know what we are, and I don't see it easily found.
In terms of financing the plant, there is a strong likelihood that we can finance this plant even without federal assistance and not impact the ratepayers. And I think all of us board members know where that money would come from. It would come from connection fees. It can be done. It is feasible. But I think it's a mistake to start the discussion now about rate increases and other financial aspects until we know whether or not the technology is going to work, because the cost largely revolves around the technology.
You said before the conversation starts, there's a conversation going on, and it's ramping up. It's about desal. It's out on the street. And
yes, it is.
A vacuum in this world is very, very difficult to maintain. It usually and most often gets filled up very quickly. And I think it's getting filled up in the case of the reverse osmosis system that we're looking at versus the word desal has seemed like a negative when you say desal. It's a data that isn't accurate. And
what's not accurate?
The data that is out on the street that says what it's going to cost. We have no way of knowing the cost, and it's going to be a tremendous increase in our rate structure.
Well, Director McKinnon, we have time and again advertised that the present construction cost estimate is $20 million. That number has been repeated time and time again at this board. And
many numbers.
There's not a lot that you can do about the rumor mill except combat it with facts.
Combat it with facts, exactly.
And we have advertised the fact that it is about a $20 million project.
I've heard $20 million. I've
yes,
heard 17. Yes. I've heard 14.
Well, it's 17.
I've had 14 plus 3.
It's 17 plus a solar energy component.
Correct.
There is, with respect to the capacity of the plant, with respect to a whole lot of specifics about the plant, there's nothing that's locked in concrete. We can't lock any of this in concrete. We're subject to a whole lot of laws going forward, not the least of which is the California Environmental Quality Act, that is going to require, as we've discussed at this board before, is going to require that we analyze the environmental impacts associated with this project.
Yeah.
That includes the growth-inducing aspects of this project. That is, for example, why we have a build-out reduction program.
Well, I understand.
The solar component is not just to save money on electricity. The law now requires that we analyze greenhouse gas emissions. Like it or not, we have to do that. And when you talk about electrical consumption, you get directly into the greenhouse gas emission issue. You have to show under the California Environmental Quality Act in your environmental impact report how you propose to deal with greenhouse gas emissions. That's one of the reasons we have a solar component. I could go on and on.
Yep.
But I think it is unfair, grossly unfair, to say that the information, such as we know it, about this plant has not been advertised. It has.
It has been advertised over and over again.
Yes, it has.
I agree with that. We need to have a composite, as we've just talked, so that we can just present it in the light of 2010.
We'll have a
not
composite.
1999,
We
not
will have a
2000.
composite.
And whether we need it at this, I mean, the sheets, which is good, we can get that together and whenever you think you can add. But the other thing that I cannot take, I appreciate your opinions, the means of financing, if again, in the corporate environment, I would get that advice from my chief financial officer who floats bonds and knows how to finance things. And if you have information, if you have some evidence that somehow connection fees are going to pay for all of this, because in 12 states of the United States that I ran utilities, you cannot take a basic services facility like our treatment plant and actually only get it paid on new customers. The relative cost has to be spread over the entire rate base. So unless there's someone that has some understanding that we can charge, whether it's 25, 35, I hear these numbers thrown out, again, kind of verbalizations, I don't see it anywhere in any document, but you cannot just say everybody, like the Unlock Group, they're going to come up with $5 million. That just doesn't work. First of all, I doubt that they're going to come up with $5 million in cash, but somewhere along the line, somebody's going to have to put money together.
They've offered $2.5 million in cash.
Well, then you have to set up a special, I mean, it sounds nice,
I understand.
but there's, you'd have to set up a special service district to accept, I mean, how do you, my point is, it shouldn't be only in one person's head, in one person's knowledge. It should be common knowledge for, as far as I'm concerned, all the board members. And I've never seen anything on the financing side of the business.
I want to make it sure, President Sanders, that we have conflict, and I think the conflict is positive. I certainly respect the previous board, Peter, yourself, and Merle, what you've done. What I want to make sure is, this is 2010 walking into 2011. Let us just distill this. We have a lot of negative energy out there that we have to address and simply say, hey, here's our plan. It's like, believe it or not, there was a plan like that was established for the Apollo program, which I was part of. We'd have still been thinking, how are we going to get to the moon now if we didn't have some really hard numbers that we had to change along the way? But we started off with, here's the picture of what it's going to be. There's no attack here. All I want to do is just make sure that we look at why we're doing it again, what is it going to cost the community, what's the benefits of this project, and how wonderful this legacy. I've said this in public session. This is going to be our legacy, whether we like it or not.
We don't know what it's going to cost the community.